For a while now, I've been meaning to get around to watching some classic Doctor Who stories that involve the Doctor facing against the Cybermen. Ever since I saw The Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel two-parter, I've always loved the Cybermen in Modern Who, but I have been curious to see where they've started. Now eventually I did order the 10th planet, and as soon as it arrived I threw it into the DVD player and watched the whole thing. My thoughts on it? It was okay. The story is that the Doctor lands the TARDIS in the South Pole in 1986, where the space station there has found a planet very similar to Earth, and eventually some of the visitors from that very same planet arrive on Earth, the Cybermen. The new planet is called Mondas. This is where the Cybermen come from, and they have the planet draining the Earth of its energy for them to use. They've also said that they will destroy the Earth and convert all the humans into Cybermen. But will the Doctor be able to defeat them along with the help of Ben and Polly, his companions? Now, the overall idea of the story I think is very good, especially for the time of 1966, and the idea of the Cybermen being the sort of human-like creatures at first, but then were forced to sort of upgrade themselves, we'll say, into these more robotic beings because their lifespans were getting shorter and shorter. So they prolonged their life by replacing parts with more robotic features, but at the same time they also got rid of their emotions. And also, the Doctor does not remain on screen an awful lot of the time, especially in episode 3, which is very unfortunate. But I did hear that Hartnell was actually very ill at the time of the recording, and the overall story was written so that if this did happen, because this is why they had to replace him, the script writers purposely wrote the line so anyone could say them in case this sort of thing happened to Hartnell. General Cutler, the one in charge of the base, is more concerned about his son's welfare, that just focusing on destroying Mondas is the only thing that concerns him. But the Doctor and the others try to explain that it could kill half of the Earth's population. But of course, if you know Doctor Who, you will know that the one in charge rarely listens to what the Doctor has to say and eventually pays the price. So really you could say that the Doctor is dealing with both General Cutler and the Cybermen in this story. The big thing I really didn't like about this story was that we never actually saw the Cybermen converting any humans. It was really just them saying that they will, and I suppose not showing is kind of interesting because not knowing the fear of the unknown, but at the same time I think it would have been interesting to have some converted into Cybermen. At the beginning you see some Cybermen knock out some soldiers, but why not kidnap them and convert them into part Cybermen, to get into the base? I know the budget back then wasn't anything like it is now, so I didn't expect the same results. But something to make the whole experience a lot more intense would add to the severity of the situation. Also, there is this weird scene where the Cybermen knock out the soldiers and just throw on their coats, and that just happens to trick people so they can just walk into the base, which I think it's really weird when I see it. But again, it's all about the budget back then and cutbacks, really. Now, talking about the acting, I'm pretty sure everyone did a good job, to be honest. I mean, no one stood out as horrible or anything, but no one really stood out as amazing. And I'm sure Hartnell would probably stand out if he was in the story a lot more. But the one that really stood out was mostly Ben to me, and well, Cutler as well, of course. he played a very good role as well. He played a very good part, but at the same time, it wasn't something new that I saw. It was just someone who was in charge and, was going against what the Doctor had to say, which isn't, it's a very standard idea. Someone in authority just doesn't listen to someone who knows more about a situation than they do. But Ben was more of your action star, I suppose, especially in episode 3 when the Doctor is basically, not there, or in this case, he's collapsed. And so, Ben's going through ventilation shafts, he's being thrown off a balcony and stuff like that. Also, another thing I have to say is the voices of the Cybermen are definitely not what I'm used to, and it just feels kind of weird in a way. But I understand that this was the very first time we see the Cybermen, and of course this is the original portrayal of them. So it was really just sort of like seeing what works and what doesn't work. And I think it is kind of interesting, like just hearing how they sound, like very robotic, but it's a little too high pitch for my liking. Now, I thought the sets in this were okay, but at the same time, a lot of it takes place in one room. You only see this one room most of the time, and excuse me, there's not a huge amount to say. It definitely feels like it's a space control room, and that's what kind of works better with all the computers everywhere, kind of like a mini version of NASA, and that's exactly what they were going for. But it's not a lot to talk about. It's just sort of like a bunch of computers in a room, and the only other ones that you see are like this office where you see where the guy at Geneva is working, and you also see the outside where the snow is, which is, of course, you have like a small scale version and like the larger scale version of it. Now, onto the one thing that I was most curious about this story, which was episode 4, which is the animated episode. Since the 4th episode was lost in the BBC archive, only the first 3 episodes exist, and the 4th episode was animated for the DVD release. The drawings of each character do seem to look like them pretty well, but the actual movement seems a little limited, and the camera shots are very close up to the characters' faces. But I can't really blame the animators too much, because really, when you're trying to animate a live action story and you're trying to make sure you don't drift away too much from the style of the live action, because if you're watching those first 3 episodes in live action, and then if you're watching the last episode, which is animated, you have no other choice. It's kind of very jarring if it's very different style. They had to keep it close as they possibly could to the designs that the live action actors had. They had to make those designs look as close as they possibly could to resemble them. Also, the other thing that this story is known for, and I won't spoil it in case anybody doesn't know and want to find out for themselves, but I found it a little underwhelming, to be honest, because it happened so quickly at the end of episode 4. Like, it just happens and then stops. So it was a little disappointing as well, just sort of how that happens, really, and the cause of it as well isn't entirely clear to me. So my overall thoughts on this story are as follows. I think the Cybermen's designs are a product of its time, but still interesting to see where they started. The use of the Doctor was minimalistic, but understandable considering Hartnell's health. The story felt like it dragged on a little bit, and I did think that they could have cut back on some points, but I thought it was okay. And the animation is pretty good for what it represents, but it isn't really anything that I'd write home about. I give this story about a 6 or 6.5 out of 10 because I do recommend people see it, just to know where the Cybermen started off, and basically, you know, see how they were back then. And also, of course, the other reason why to check it out, but I can't really say, but if you're a Doctor Who fan, you will know why. But apart from that, I don't really see a huge amount of reason why, because in my honest opinion, I almost got bored in the middle of it. Like, it just felt like it dragged on a bit. And I don't know, I felt like, you know, you could cut some bits out of episode 3 and episode 2 and you just put them together. Or not episode 2, episode 1. And, you know, just like try and like put 1, 2, and 3 together and make you know, 2 different episodes. So it's only like a 3-episode story. But like, it really is a product of its time. But if you guys have different thoughts on the story, I would love to hear them. Leave your comments down below, and I will definitely get around to reading them. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I may do more classic Doctor Who stories if you want me to. I just wanted to do this because I'm a big Cyberman fan, and this is the first and only classic Cyberman story that I've watched so far. And, you know, it's not a great start, just my overall thoughts on it, but it's, you know, it's only the start. There's plenty more for me to see, and, you know, a 6.5 isn't bad either. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. I'd love it if you did. Subscribe, stay up to date with more videos that I will have in the future. And, you know, hopefully I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.